20 years old.
Mm.
You're a law student in Bangalore. It's 2003, and you were just completely trapped. Kum. Shubha was facing this crushing, inescapable pressure of a forced marriage to a man named Girish.
Right, and that profound desperation, it eventually spiraled into a deadly conspiracy.
Yeah, ending in Girish's murder on a dark ring road. So today we are taking a deep dive into a 2025 Supreme Court judgment that took this immense human tragedy and, well, turned it into a masterclass on how the justice system decodes human psychology.
The psychological pressures at play here were just incredibly complex. I mean, the court really had to weigh the reality of a young woman's desperation against the undeniable fact that a life was violently taken.
Okay, let's unpack this because the legal hurdle here is massive.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court had to solve this murder relying entirely on circumstantial evidence and a digital trail.
Yeah.
They actually threw out the physical eyewitnesses completely.
They really had to. I mean, the eyewitness conduct was just highly unnatural.
How so?
Well, if someone claims they watched a brutal murder happen, but then, quietly goes home and doesn't call the police for a full 24 hours.
Wow, 24 hours.
Exactly. A court simply cannot trust their testimony at that point. So, without them, the justices were forced to rely on a strict 5-part test for circumstantial evidence.
Right, which means building an unbroken chain of facts, right?
Yes, a chain that points to absolutely nothing but the guilt of the accused. There can be no other possible explanation.
But, I mean, relying on digital data to build that chain creates a massive legal headache.
Oh, absolutely.
Because how do you actually prove to a judge that a spreadsheet of text logs hasn't been tampered with? That is exactly where the defense attacked, bringing us to Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act.
Right, which in plain English is basically the strict rule for getting electronic records admitted into a trial. The defense argued that these phone logs were invalid. They said the legal certificates authenticating them weren't signed by the exact IT technicians who originally downloaded the data from the telecom servers decades ago.
But the court made a highly pragmatic ruling here.
They did. They basically stated you don't actually need that specific technician. Any telecom official in a responsible managerial position is enough to verify the records.
So it's kind of like needing a bank manager to verify your official account statement, rather than tracking down the specific bank teller who processed your deposit 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to look at it.
But let me push back a little on this. Does that pragmatic approach make the law too loose? Like, aren't we risking the admission of tampered data just to save some time?
It's a really natural concern for sure, but it essentially comes down to institutional trust versus individual memory.
Institutional trust, meaning the company's systems.
Right. The law recognizes that we are trusting the integrity of the telecom company's automated system, not the personal recollection of a single employee.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so as long as a responsible official can verify the system was operating correctly and the data generation is standard procedure, the evidence holds up.
And that data was incredibly damning. I mean, while Shubha was sitting right next to her fiancé at dinner, just hours before the murder, she exchanged 38 back-to-back text messages with her accomplice.
38 messages?
Yeah, 38. But the moment the murder happened, dead silence. And she manually deleted every single one of those texts from her phone.
Which is exactly where the law looks at behavioral inferences.
Right.
Because deleting a massive text thread the moment a violent crime occurs isn't just suspicious. Under Section 120B of the Penal Code for Criminal Conspiracy.
And Section 201 for the destruction of evidence, right?
Exactly. Under those sections, that bizarre, unnatural conduct during an emergency heavily implies guilt. The silence itself essentially becomes evidence.
Wow. But they didn't just have digital data, though. They actually found the murder weapon, which was a steel rod.
Yeah, and they found it based on a joint confession by 2 of the accomplices.
Which is unusual, isn't it?
Very. I mean, usually, if 2 suspects point fingers and confess together, courts are highly suspicious. It's just too easy for police to coerce a shared story.
Right, that makes total sense.
But under Section 27 of the Evidence Act, there is this fascinating carve-out. Because their joint statement led directly to physically unearthing that hidden steel rod.
The discovery of the physical proof mathematically validates their words.
Exactly. The physical evidence anchors the confession.
So the unbroken chain is complete. The Supreme Court confidently upholds the life sentences for all the accused.
They do.
But then they pull off this massive constitutional pivot. Even while upholding the sentence, the court invoked Article 161 of the Constitution.
Which is the state governor's power to grant pardons.
Yes, Why did they do that?
Well, the court engaged in a concept called compassionate correction. It is a purposive interpretation of the law that prioritizes constitutional mercy over rigid penal rules. Yeah, the justices openly acknowledged the deep societal trauma and the mental rebellion caused by forced marriages.
So they really recognized what she was going through.
Right. So while they upheld the life sentences, they suspended the arrest of the accused for 8 weeks.
Specifically to grant them time to seek a pardon from the governor.
Exactly. It's a really unique balance.
It really bridges the gap between strict criminal procedure and human empathy so perfectly.
It really does.
On a practical level, for everyone listening, this deep dive is a stark reminder that your digital footprint is permanent. I mean, deleting a text does not erase it from a telecom server.
No, it doesn't. And your conduct during a crisis will always be scrutinized.
Exactly. And for anyone working in the legal field, it proves that compliance with electronic evidence rules is actually highly practical.
And that constitutional mercy can operate beautifully right alongside a heavy criminal sentence.
Which leaves us with this final thought. If our digital footprints are truly permanent, and every deleted message lives on a cold server somewhere, long after the physical evidence fades,
Yeah.
is true erasure ever possible? Or are we forever tethered to our darkest digital moments?